Hello everyone, this is Game of Knowledge and More, Game of Knowledge, GoCam, or just Fred if you want to go by my real name, back with another video. Today I'll be doing a Magic the Gathering deck video on Brago King Eternal. So he's a Spirit Noble with the power of 2 and the toughness of 4. He costs 2 of any, a white and a blue. And whenever he deals combat damage to a player, exile any number of target non-permanents you control, then return those cards to the battlefield under their owner's control. So what I did is that I put in cards that have entered the battlefield effects mainly, but I also have 2 cards that benefit from creatures entering the battlefield and some cards that benefit from me attacking. So first off, I have creatures that give me mana and mainly through treasures. First is Prosperous Pirates. It costs 5 mana in total, with 1 of it being blue and 4 of it being any. When it enters the battlefield, it creates 2 treasure tokens. Next is Corsair Captain. It does just 1 treasure token, but it gives other pirates you control +1/+1. And lastly, Sailor of Means. It just gives me 1 treasure when it enters the battlefield. So with them, every time I deal combat damage to a player, that means that I would get treasures every time. Next is cards that draw me cards. First is Cloud Blazer. It costs 3 of any, a white and a blue. And when it enters the battlefield, I gain 2 life and draw 2 cards. Next is Mold Drifter, which is the same, except it costs 4 of any in the blue. And it has an evoke cost, which I'm never going to use in this deck, unless absolutely necessary. Last is Wall of Omens, which for 1 of any and a white, it's a defender that draws me a card when it enters the battlefield. Next is 3 cards that help me with dealing with my opponent's stuff. First is Rambunctious Mutt, which for 3 of any and 2 white. When it enters the battlefield, it destroys an artifact or an enchantment an opponent controls. So if they have a Soul Ring or anything problematic, I can just destroy it. Next is Meteor Golem, which for 2 extra mana, it destroys any non-permanent an opponent controls. So it could even be a problematic creature. Next is Scourge of Fleets, which when it enters the battlefield, I return each creature my opponent controls with toughness X or less to its owner's hand, where X is the number of islands I control. So I'm able to either destroy or return stuff to the hand if they're problematic. Next are some cards that trigger whenever I attack mainly. First is Thorough Investigation, which whenever I attack, I investigate, which is putting a colorless clue artifact token with pay 2, sacrifice it, draw a card onto the battlefield. And whenever I sacrifice a clue, I venture into the dungeon. So I either enter the first room or advance to the next room. Next is Military Intelligence, which is whenever I attack with 2 or more creatures, I draw a card. Last is Ever-Watching Threshold, which does the opposite. So whenever an opponent attacks me or a planeswalker I control with 1 or more creatures, I get to draw a card. Next is some ways of making so Brago is unblockable, or being able to get through. First is Open into Wonder. So for X and 2 blue, it says X target creatures can't be blocked this turn, and until end of turn, those creatures gain whenever there's combat damage to a player, draw a card. So I can just put 1 into the X, targeting Brago, making him unblockable. Next is Rollerblade, who can create 2 colorless Doctor artifact creature tokens with flying. And I can tap 2 untapped artifacts I control to make target creature unblockable. Next is Rogue's Passage, which by paying 4 mana, I can make someone unblockable. Next is ways of making so my commander or any other creature can't be targeted in some way. They're blink spells, essentially. So first is Essence Flux. So I exile a creature I control, then return it to the battlefield. If it's a spirit, I put a +1/+1 counter on it. Next is Simon's Ruse, which does the same thing, except if a pirate was exiled this way, I draw a card. An acrobatic maneuver does it to any creature I control, and it draws me a card. Nextly, what? Next is 2 cards that are essentially the same card with Ghostly Prison and Propaganda. They make sure your opponents can't attack you unless they pay 2 for each creature. And next is a counter spell that says counter target spell unless its controller pays 1. If you control a creature with flying, counter that spell unless its controller pays 4 instead. So with Brago, your opponents will always have to pay 4 if they want to keep the spell. Next is some cards that make it harder for your opponents to do things. First is Gideon's Intervention, which, as it enters the battlefield, choose a card name. Your opponents can't cast spells with a chosen name, and I prevent all damage that will be dealt to me and permanents I control by sources with a chosen name. Next is Leonin Arbiter. It makes players can't search libraries, and someone can pay 2 to ignore that for the turn. Next is Dolphin, Hand of Control. So the main effect is artifact, instant, and sorcery spells, so opponents cost 1 more to cast. So it's in there to make sure my opponents won't be able to cast their big spells. Next is 2 cards that trigger whenever something else enters the battlefield. First is Sage's Will Denizen, which says whenever another blue creature enters the battlefield under your control, target player puts the top 2 cards of their library into their graveyard. So with it, I can mill someone for 2 every time, like Brago or one of the pirates come into play. Next is Radiant Solar, which says whenever Radiant Solar or another non-token creature enters the battlefield under my control, venture into the dungeon. But I can also pay a white and discard it to venture into the dungeon and gain 3 life. Next is a kind of an infinite combo, but I'm waiting for a card to truly make it infinite. It's Felidar Guardian, which says when it enters the battlefield, you may exile another target permanent you control, then return that card to the battlefield under its owner's control. Why am I having such a hard time today? I never know. The other one is Spark Double, which comes in as a copy of a creature or planeswalker you control, except it comes in with an additional +1/+1 counter or loyalty counter, depending on which one he becomes. And it is a legendary if that opponent is legendary. So it gets around the legendary rule. So what happens is you play Spark Double, make it a copy of Felidar Guardian, therefore getting the effect of Felidar Guardian, exiling it, bringing it back. Therefore you're getting Felidar Guardian's effect. You exile Spark Double, then you bring it back. Then you make Spark Double a copy of Felidar Guardian, exiling it, bringing it back. Users infinitely do this while making Spark Double a copy of Felidar Guardian. Now, with the cards that I have, you can either venture into the dungeon an infinite number of times, or make F1 mill. Because I'm pretty sure if I'm wrong, then the comment section's there. But I'm pretty sure Spark Double will stay as a blue creature while doing this. So every time so it's essentially a blue Feather Guardian for this combo. So I'm pretty sure Sage's Jensen will still work. Anyway, that's all for today, guys. I hope you like the deck. Make sure you check out my social media pages down below in the description. Ring the bell and make sure you deal that combat damage to the subscribe button to get future uploads. Thanks for watching, guys. Bye.